You are now listening to Protecting Your Nest with board-certified family medicine and obesity medicine specialist Dr. Tony Hampton. For more, visit drtonyhampton.com. Welcome to the Protecting Your Nest podcast. The use of my nest and rope acronym are the foundation of this podcast. And as a reminder of the elements you need to focus on if you are to achieve metabolic health, the rope reminds us to focus on our relationships, to avoid organisms and pollutants that harm us, to protect our emotions, and to have life experiences that serve us. Today, I wanted to focus on the P in the rope acronym and what may be a potential pollutant that could harm us. Today, we will focus on fluoride and toothpaste and what are the risks or benefits of either. This is the founder of Prodent Max Toothpaste, Mr. B. Prodent Max, which is a herbal toothpaste, is made with all natural ingredients. It is the founder's belief that most commercial toothpastes are loaded with chemicals that can be toxic to the human body, which is why he is committed to making a product with natural ingredients. As we talk and walk towards this ideal of metabolic health, it's important that we take a big picture perspective. That perspective includes not only adding to our bodies what helps us, or even removing what harms us, but it also involves staying away from the things that we should stay away from in the first place, and that's toxins and pollutants. And before we begin, I must share that the root cause of dental decay is demineralization of calcium and phosphorus, which occurs primarily due to an acidic pH, which certain bacteria increase in your mouth, including Streptococcus mutans and lactobacillus and others. And guess what? Sugar is one of the main reasons why we have those bad bacteria. So it's important that, and I'm a low carb doc. That's another good reason to consider low carb, because you avoid those sugars that will increase the harmful bacteria that our teeth do not like. And with that intro, Mr. B, the founder of this great toothpaste, welcome to the Protecting Your Nest podcast.
I truly appreciate you, Dr. Hampton. Thank you for having me on your show.
Well, it is my pleasure. And because I have this functional medicine training, I can't just talk about low carb. I got to talk about pollutants and toxins and relationships and all those elements of the rope and nest. And if we address those as well, we are going to more easily walk towards being metabolically healthy and healed. So let's start our conversation by you sharing what motivated you and your family to put everything to the side and focus all your time and resources to the toothpaste industry. What kind of led to that for you?
Well, I'm going to say it like this. A lot of my friends passed away in 2015 from cancer. And I found out that most of them was vegans and vegetarians.
Wow.
Now, the funny thing, Dr. Hampton, is that these guys, all they did was went to church and went to the doctor's office and work out. That's all I seen them do. And it's funny how 15 of them, now don't get me wrong, all of them wasn't vegans or vegetarian, but majority of them. But they all died of cancer. But the funny thing, they never smoked. Some of those guys didn't smoke or drink. But the funny thing is that after they passed away, I would ask their loved ones, what type of products was they using? Was they using herbal toothpaste, or I was just sticking with the toothpaste? And every one of them told me their family was using commercial products. So from that moment on, I took it upon myself to try to change. I can't change the industry, but I can come up with my own product and present that to the people.
Wow.
And that's when I came up with Prodent Max Organic and Natural Toothpaste.
Wow. Well, I always tell my listeners that association and correlation does not necessarily equal causation. And I'll say that from the vegan perspective and from the fact that they use commercial toothpaste. But I will say this, it'll make you pause and say,
Right.
wait a minute, Houston, we may have a problem. And that's why it is so important that we have that awareness. But it's also important to say anytime we can do something that's logical. And what you've done is, you may not have a randomized controlled trial in front of you for this specific topic, but guess what? It's logical to say, how about if we move towards something that's not going to have chemicals? Because if there's a correlation or association, and some study down the road will say there's causation, then why not start the process now? So I kind of feel you with that. And I think that's important. We have that context. Now, so we all know there are negatives of fluoride, and we're going to talk about that during this podcast. But the question is, are you aware of any benefits of fluoride? What's your thoughts on potential benefits before we get into the negatives?
Well, that's a short answer. There is no benefit of fluoride. And then I guess you can say it depends on who you asking the question to. Mm-hmm. But to be honest with you, there is nothing good about fluoride. And that's all I have to say about that.
So basically you have a belief that because there's so much potential harm in your mind, there can't be any benefit. Now, some people would argue, well, I had a kid who had fluoride when they were a kid, and then I have another kid who didn't. And the one that had fluoride didn't get cavities, and the one that did. So I think that there's a disconnect. Now, we don't know if they were to make that statement, if there was any downstream negative effects. That's the whole point. So, but I know from like when I talk to my dental hygienist, they're not necessarily in the weeds like you are. They're not necessarily thinking about this holistically. And they would say, well, there are some benefits of, if it's not toxic, that it may protect your teeth and make them stronger. The question is it going overboard at some point? Is it like a dose dependent situation? And those are the types of questions that my listeners need to be aware of, that it may be a dose dependent situation. But again, if it's bad, you have to really pause. So let's go to the next talking point, which is in terms of, when did we start fluorinating water in the first place? What do you know about that?
Well, Dr. Hampton, from my studies, we talked I see it written down in many places how, yes, it did start in Grand Rapids in 1945. Was the first city in the world to add fluoride to its public water supply. And they feel fluoride in the drinking water would attempt, notice that word, attempt, to fight tooth decay. But we can go back further than that. It really started by a doctor by the name of Frederick McKay. Back in 1901, he was from the East Coast, and he moved to Colorado Springs. And he was trying to open up a dental office. Upon his arrival, he couldn't believe that so many of the locals were suffering from brown stains on their teeth. He'd never seen anything like this, but the locals was used to seeing their teeth like that. They was cool with it. So Dr. McKay decided to find out why their teeth was so brown. He came up with a name for it and called it the Colorado brown stain. And it took over 30 years, a lot of investigations, and before they found out it was fluoride in the water. Now, what people got to understand, fluoride is in your rocks, in your riverbanks, and it breaks off into the water. But it had high doses of it. And what it did is stained the teeth. But they feel that it will help with keeping the teeth from getting cavities and stuff like that. But to me, that's crazy, because that's like saying I want to bleach my teeth with bleach, but it's going to interfere with my liver and kidneys and destroy my heart and give me stomach cancer. But you got beautiful teeth.
Well, you know what this reminds me of is the fact that as I was thinking about talking to you about this topic, and we touched on it in my training with nutrition and functional medicine, the general theme from that nutrition and functional medicine program was they weren't really big fans of fluoride either, which is very interesting. But so my research said that when you think about, well, how often are people drinking fluorinated water? And what I found in my research, 66% of Americans have water that they drink that's, that's fluorinated. In Canada, it goes down to about 38%. And this is the shocker. In Europe, Europeans, only 3%
right
fluorinated water, which is crazy.
That's interesting.
Very interesting. They tend to be more cautious. They tend to ban substances they consider toxic. Now, overall, it's about 50% of the world's population that drink fluorinated water. But the question is, what do the Europeans know that we don't know, right? And speaking of not knowing something from the past, I want to ask you, because I know you've done a ton of research on this topic, right? There was some other uses of fluoride that I learned about, particularly when it comes to the Nazis. So although I think the focus of the audience is always, does it harm me or not? But it's always good to have a little historical perspective. So talk a little bit about the Nazi experience as it relates to fluoride.
Okay, so after I'm going to step back just a little bit. When Dr. McKay was doing his research from 1901, it took 30 years, which would put you in the 1930s, correct? Now, during that time, in America, fluoride was a rat poison. They was using that as a main ingredient for rat poison. Now, when Hitler took over, he took over in Germany from the 1930s all the way to the mid 1940s. That was one of the main ingredients that he put into an area called the ghetto. I didn't know they had a ghetto there, but because I was always familiar with hearing that here in the States, but they have what they call the ghetto. And that was one of the first things Hitler did, was put that in the water. It kind of dumbs you down, make you submissive, and it affects the brain in more ways than one. It's amazing what this thing does.
Dulling the brains. It's hard enough to be sharp because life is busy and stressful. Do we really want something that's going to dull our brain? So that's pretty eye-opening, I think. And for anybody listening to this, it does make you pause and make you wonder, what are we doing? So that's interesting. Okay. So now, when it comes to fluoride itself, there are some negative consequences of fluoride use. You've already mentioned some. It dulls the brain.
Right.
It has so what other thing, again, obviously it affects how your teeth can look depending on when you're exposed to it. So any other things that come to mind as negative effects of having fluoride in the diet?
Oh, brother, do you got all day? I can.
That's why we're talking about it.
Right. Well, I'm going to make this short as possible so they can understand. Fluoride is a toxic waste. Fluoride in the human body causes skin disease, skin rash, and it makes your bones weak and brittle and even cause death. And it also affects the liver, the kidneys. I just don't understand how you want my teeth to be so strong, but you want the rest of me to wither away. You understand what I'm saying, Dr. Hampton?
Yeah, I agree. I I learned a little bit about it in my research for our conversation, and to know that it can negatively impact the thyroid. I think the thyroid thing I learned also in my training. And obviously, if you're getting it at the wrong time, particularly for our kids, right? If they're getting exposed to it at the wrong time, then particularly I think less than the age of 8, you can then get that fluorescence, which is when your teeth become discolored, and maybe that's a lot of what you were seeing when you were referencing the story earlier. So yeah, so I am struggling here. Again, the struggle is this: you have stories that fluoride made my kids' teeth strong, and now you have this other side of the coin, and maybe they just didn't get the toxic exposure, and they did okay. So let's think about this. We kind of know it's not something that is clean in terms of the potential to cause harm, and we know that we want to make sure our teeth are strong. So, but we also know that many of the toothpastes, have fluoride in it. So the way I see it is this way. I never really noticed on my toothpaste, and just for all those who are checking out this episode, this is an audio only, so I can't show you my toothpaste right now. But if I were to show you my toothpaste, I was shocked, because I guess you just become oblivious to this. But you look at the label on the toothpaste, and it has a warning label on the toothpaste. So talk a little bit about that warning label and what it says, and maybe even your thoughts on us using something that has a warning label like that.
Yes, well, a lot of people never saw that because a lot of times we don't read what we put in our bodies. And it talks about warning. If it used to say this a couple of years ago, now they didn't change it to something else. It used to say, if you swallow a dime size, contact your poison center, which lets you know that you are brushing your teeth with what? Poison.
Right.
So reading this lets you know that the chemicals in this product will destroy you, and which is going to lead to, bad things happening to your organs. Now, in those ingredients, not only fluoride, let me see here. They have what they call something like a detergent agent, where you see the little bubbles, and even when you wash your clothes and you see the bubbles, that gives you this indication that you are cleaning it real good. But that agent is a real bad chemical, and it leads to canker sores in the mouth. It affects the taste bud, and is also registered as a insecticide. And you also have an artificial sweetener could lead to higher risk of strokes, heart disease, and death. And then you have Mr. Fluoride. Is a toxic, it builds up in your bones, and it also affects the joint stiffness and pain, also lead to weak bones in older adults, also affects your liver and your kidneys function.
So what I'm hearing, when I hear you mention, first of all, the label, right? And there's a couple of things that come to mind. And that's the thing with America that's different than other countries. We're like dose dependent, right? So we're saying, yes, this can harm you if you don't have too much of it. Where it seems like in Europe, they're saying, if it can harm you, it can harm you, so get rid of it. So it seems like they have a different philosophy. We're allowing industry to give us a little exposure to something that can harm, In Europe, they don't do that. So that's the first thing that kind of comes to mind. The other thing that comes to mind, and why I worry about, I mentioned fluoresis when you get stained teeth, right? Well, they're saying that occurs primarily during that growth phase for the kids when they're less than 8. Well, if fluoride's a problem, are the kids more likely to swallow the toothpaste when they're 5 or when they're 25? And the answer is when they're 5.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So now we have the potential for our babies to maybe, even if you can make the argument that fluoride is okay at lower dosages, our babies are not necessarily going to have the ability to follow those instructions because they're babies and they're going to just swallow. That's what they do. So
sure.
Those are the things that come to mind. And I also want to, circle back a little bit and just mention that when you spoke about the dulling of our brains and what was being done to the Jewish population, it makes me worry about our babies' brains as well. What did you learn much about if it's dulling the brains of, I'm assuming, adults also in that population, what was going on in that to the Jewish population? What is that doing to our baby's brain? So what did you learn about how it affects our baby's brain?
Absolutely, sir. Even when a woman is pregnant and she's carrying that precious baby, if she's drinking fluoride water, that child also is receiving fluoride water. Now, when they say, if you swallow, Dr. Hampton, you and I both know you don't have to swallow it. Anything you put in your mouth is going straight into your bloodstream.
True.
You see what I'm saying? It goes straight into your bloodstream. You don't have to swallow. And now, fluoride causes brain damage. It also causes low IQ levels in children. Memory loss. It also causes ADD, ADHD, depression, and bipolar disorder. So when you brushing your teeth, see, the Europeans, reason why theirs is so low, because they don't drink fluoride water. They brush their teeth with fluoride toothpaste. So they're not getting that double and triple effect of it, that it builds up. Now, another thing I try to tell a lot of people, it's just like when you brush your teeth with fluoride, then you turn around, turn on the faucet, and you rinse your mouth that has fluoride, chlorine, and lead in it. So you are stacking this up inside of your body and don't even realize, hell, look when we take a bath. The biggest organ on your body is your skin. And it absorbs all of that lead, chlorine, and fluoride.
Okay.
So, but it's just like chlorine. Chlorine alone is a poison. It hardens the arteries, and it also has a lot to do with memory loss and cancer. And what about the lead? It also causes damage to the brains, the kidneys, and can interfere with the production of red blood cells that carry oxygen to all parts of the body. Now, this is the same water you drinking and the same water you rinsing your mouth with. So, this is terrible on all levels. No matter what size, no matter what size of the fluoride, it's terrible.
Yeah, your comments have opened up the floodgates in my brain, and I want to make, I was jotting down some thoughts as you were saying it. And this is all kind of making me, again, that's why I'm so thankful I got some functional medicine training, because we did not even talk about any of this in my conventional medical training. So I think everybody who enjoys the Protecting Your Nest podcast recognizes that the right foods are important to our health, right?
Sure.
So we want to avoid the bad foods, but we have to lump into that category toxins that can also harm the human organism. We used to call it a human organism in school. Now, so again, prior to my training in nutrition and functional medicine, my brain only thought of a toxin as things like alcohol, cigarette smoking, and maybe the drugs, the street drugs that we're familiar with. That's what I thought a toxin was. I never imagined that the things I do each and every day, like brushing my teeth, could potentially cause my body harm. I just never thought about it. And as I've gotten into my whole low carb space, I've been kind of obsessed with educating people about sugar and how that can lead to diabetes and poor metabolic health. But this is what I've learned is that, first of all, I need to think broader than that because there are other toxins. Excessive sugar is a toxin. Arsenic and mercury and lead. You mentioned lead's a toxin, but it may be the other things that I'm doing each and every day. It may be the water I'm drinking. It may be the air I'm breathing. And so it's really important that we understand. Another thing I learned in my functional medicine training that was, like off the charts. I learned about a leaky gut, and the leaky gut then allows large proteins to be absorbed into your gut. Those large proteins will then be recognized as looking like your body, and then your body attacks it, so you end up with an autoimmune disease, right? Well,
yes.
Now imagine a toxin. This is what I learned. I can't believe I'm even remembering it now. The toxins that you put in your body, whether it's fluoride or something else, sometimes attaches to your body tissue. When it attaches to your body tissue, your body says, something is going to change that body tissue. And your body then thinks it's foreign. And now you got an autoimmune disease. I mean,
wow.
So the whole point of it is we have to understand, why did I get sick in the first place? And there are some toxins that are harder to remove than others. But the point I'm making is this. We need to know why we got sick, and sometimes it's because we've been exposed to toxins. If it's possible to detoxify, maybe you can do chelation therapy for lead as an example. And then you have to then heal the body with whole foods. I don't know if you low carb like me or plant-based, eat real food and then allow the body to recover. So I just want to, those are the thoughts that came to mind as you shared your thoughts. And I do want to ask you a practical question, because many people are going to be like, well, you talked about water. You know, is there other places where I need to be thinking about fluoride? Any places that they may not be thinking about?
Yes, sir. Well, what about this fruit juice and soda?
Man, see, that's the obvious, right?
Right. Even, hey, I love beer once in a while myself too, you know?
Right.
But I'm quite sure these big beverage companies don't have alkaline water,
right,
that they are mixing with your favorite drink.
Nah, not even close. Not even.
You know what I'm saying? Because they're not going to do that. They're going to open up the tap.
Okay.
And mix it with your favorite beverage, you know. Wow. And that's how a lot of fluoride get into. You can go to these stores, anything that's liquid, I guarantee you it's not fresh water. Right. It's from the tap, like in your house.
Wow. I believe that. I was watching a, something on some documentary or something. It basically said that a lot of the companies, even that you're spending money with the bottled water, are doing that, which is amazing, and that they can get away with that. So that helps. So it sounds like wherever there's something that had to be made with water, there's a risk that fluoride was part of that. So, man, the exposures are off the chain when you think about it that way. I learned about this tooth decay process is that you do have good and bad bacteria in your mouth. Is fluoride, because that's what my dental hygienist always talks about. Well, the bad bacteria is going to then lead to plaque, etc. What is the fluoride able to mitigate that, or make it worse? Does it increase the bad bacteria in your mouth somehow?
No, believe it or not, it kills all bacteria.
Wow.
The good bacteria and the bad. Now, I don't mind it getting rid of the bad, but it kills the good bacteria, what you need to limit tooth decay.
Yeah.
Because Dr. Hampton, what we got to realize, you have over 20 billion bacteria cells in your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
After 5 hours, that moves up to, let's say you didn't brush your teeth in 24 hours. Mm-hmm. Do you know you will have 100 billion bacteria in your mouth?
Mm. Wow.
So it's just like when people rinse their mouth with mouthwash. Mm-hmm. It has a 10% alcohol level that kills everything in your mouth and will lead to bad health. Mm. You need the good bacteria.
Okay.
So this comes in and just kill it all, everything. Mm. And that is not healthy.
Wow. Okay. Well, that doesn't sound healthy. And again, we're not just on this planet by ourselves. We're filled with bacteria, more bacteria than cells in our body. So they're working with us to help us.
Sure.
Okay, so let's kind of let's talk about some good news, which is that you have invested your time, energy, and resources to create a all-natural toothpaste. And I know there's some on the market also. So let's talk about, so why is your toothpaste one that the people who are checking out this episode, now that we've scared them to death, what is it about your product that
the truth hurts, man. I understand.
It's rough out here. Talk a little bit about that. Let's talk a little bit about what makes your product different. What ingredients does it have? Things like that.
Okay, it's so many I picked out about 6 of them. I have over 14 ingredients.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
Okay, you have myrrh. Myrrh is a powerful antioxidant that kills harmful bacteria that help heal sores in the mouth and combat pain and swelling. Cool. We have coconut oil, prevent gingivitis and tooth decay and reduce bad bacteria and get rid of bad breath. Now, as I'm naming these ingredients, these same ingredients do what they're trying to make fluoride do. You don't need fluoride. This is a much better alternative than putting a poison in your mouth and expecting good results. Now, I have peppermint. Peppermint oil, it freshens the breath. It also kills bad bacteria and fungus, both of which can cause infections in the mouth or lead to developing of cavities. We have clove oil. All of this is natural and organic ingredients. This is a powerful oil that fights off bad bacteria and it fights off cavities. We have tea tree oil. It is a natural remedy for bad breath. Tea tree oil helps to remove plaque and kill off bad bacteria and prevent tooth decay. And what I like about this one, Dr. Hampton, a lot of people bought my toothpaste before they started using my product, they had bleeding gums. This is really good for bleeding gums as well.
Wow.
Now, I have baking soda, which alkalines the mouth. If you just use baking soda alone, it would raise your pH level to an 8.5. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's also great for removing plaque. And I have sea salt, help to protect the teeth and gums and prevent tooth decay. It's also great for healing sores in the mouth. A lot of people have canker sores, have all kind of oral problems. Mm-hmm. But if you got the right product, it will aid and help in healing you. I had one young lady out of another state, and her mom called me, and she said the dentist was giving her daughter all of this medication. Mm-hmm. And because they was going to have to remove all her teeth, she started using my product. That was 6 months ago. The pain have went away, and she still have all her teeth. Now, I'm not saying this is a miracle, but I have enough ingredients in here to help everyone. Children, adults. A lot of my people who buy my products are dentists. A lot of people who buy my product don't have any teeth at all. They brush their gums with it.
Wow.
They wanted to get down into the, you know what I mean, to remove all of that bad bacteria. Now, I'm going to say one more thing. When I put this together, I took coconut oil, and I had a few people who I know to do what they call oil pulling. I'm quite sure. You ever heard of that?
Oh, yeah. I learned that in my nutrition and functional medicine. Absolutely very familiar. Removes toxins. It's a great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Man, this cat took a half a tablespoon of coconut oil, and he sucked it between his teeth for about 10 to 15 minutes. And when he spit this stuff out, Dr. Hampton, it was green and brown stuff came out of his gums. Now, that's the reason why I put the coconut oil in there, to help detox and pull these bad bacteria that's in your gum. My friend told me his grandfather was born in the 1800s, but he had the prettiest white teeth, but his gums was rotten to the core. And that's what killed him. And people don't realize your mouth is nastier than any part of your body. But you got to bring that level, that pH level up.
But we never would have thought that something like coconut oil pulling would be helpful. But when I was in my training, I do remember that they talked about it reduces the harmful bacteria in your mouth, not the beneficial ones. Obviously.
Right. That's why I put the ingredients I got in here will not touch the good. It's only going to go after the bad. Everything in here is good for your teeth.
And actually, I just thought about something. You said that it did what fluoride can do, and I think you're right. I know that pulling also helps with bad breath, but I also learned in my training that it can actually help. Coconut can help prevent cavities. So it kind of that's
absolutely
right there, and it also reduces inflammation. And when you
absolutely
all those toxins, all those harmful things that are in commercial toothpaste. In fact, I think we should comment on that a little bit more, because you mentioned it earlier. But one of the things I learned about was trichosin. And some of these things you can't even pronounce, because they always tell you, man, if you're trying to put something in your body, can you at least pronounce it? But
absolutely.
Had you heard of trichosin before? Trichosin?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I heard of some of it, but I kind of forgot it when I was studying this stuff years ago. And like you said, you have to be, you got to be on your game, man, to even pronounce this stuff. Because if I can't pronounce it, I don't want it. You know.
That's what I'm saying. And but what we learned in school is this idea of what they call an endocrine disruptor. And when you think about what that means, it's, you have all of these hormones in your body, and they work kind of together, to be honest with you. So any substance that's from the environment, something you eat or whatever, that you put into your body, and then it negatively affects the hormones in your body, then your hormones are kind of all awry. And because your hormones are so important for other things, now your risk for cancer goes up. Now your risk for birth defects, if you're, having a baby, goes up, and all kinds of other problems. So you don't want to have a endocrine disruptor. Women, obviously, with their hormones, and if they're consuming things, now their cycle's off, or they're having irregular bleeding and all of these things. And
yes.
And I would think about, the chemicals, BPA, and all these things we learn in school. But man, who'd have thought that maybe I would at risk by my toothpaste. So anyway, I just wanted to circle back a little bit. And I guess let's go. I would assume you mentioned 14 ingredients. That doesn't sound cheap. So
No.
So what happens? I go to the dollar store and get some toothpaste, right? And I'm comparing that to you. So how do I rationalize the cost? What kind of cost are we talking about? And just talk a little bit about that.
Okay, when I first put this together, first it took 3 years, Dr. Hampton, for me to find a company in the USA. Mm-hmm. Because everybody I tried to talk to, they literally hung up on me because I didn't want to put fluoride in the toothpaste. Mm-hmm. And I finally found the company on the West Coast that was willing to work with me and follow my vision. Mm-hmm. And this stuff is very expensive. That's why a lot of people who sell organic and natural toothpaste, they don't give you all these ingredients I got. They only give you probably 4 or 5. And I guarantee you most of them are made in China or India. I am not the only one, but I am one of the few that have my product made here in the USA. So it's much more expensive when my product is made, but I do have over 14 ingredients. And, it has a pleasant taste. It is really great. Like I said, this is good. What they bragging about fluoride, these ingredients I have in this product would do that and more. Mm-hmm. If you feel what I'm saying.
I feel you. Well, I don't have to feel you because I use the product myself. So
right.
I'm always nervous when I change. But me and my wife are on a detoxification journey. Mm-hmm. In fact, one of my future guests, probably towards the end of the month or the beginning of next month, is gonna be a repeat guest. And she wrote a book, and don't tell your wife, but the book's called Dirty Girl. Dirty Girl. And she's saying I'm dirty because I have a toxic body. And so I wanted to bring her back so we can kind of in more detail walk through her book. But part of our journey as a couple is let's gradually start to detoxify. So what that looks like is get a machine to purify your water at home. Stop using plastic. Let's think about the toothpaste. And when I learned of your product, I said, this may be how I can transition to a more natural toothpaste. So what we're trying to do is gradually, and I don't want anybody checking out this episode to be so paranoid that they just freak out and think they are, they're like John Travolta back in the day when he was in a little bubble. No, we don't have to be crazy, but we do need to start making change. And to me, making a change in your toothpaste is pretty easy. I mean, it may cost you an arm and a leg to get a water purifier or really a highly, like a ionizing air cleaning machine for your house, right? Those things cost money. But changing toothpaste is definitely a more practical first step. How long does the toothpaste last if you get a tube, and how much do you have to use?
Okay, well, this toothpaste, Dr. Hampton, is so potent, you only need a pea size. Cool. If you use it correctly, this toothpaste will last you more than 2 months. But what it is, we're conditioned to looking at the commercials where you got to put all that toothpaste on the brush.
That's right.
And they did that purposely so you can run out and run back and buy more. Mm-hmm. But I'm here to tell you the truth. By this toothpaste being so potent, you only need a pea size.
Okay, cool.
And it will last you, if you do it right, it will last you over 2 months.
That's nice.
And
well, I just think that helps, because if it's lasting longer, you don't have to use as much, then everything kind of balances out. So I think that works.
And excuse me, I'm gonna say one more thing. Another thing that I tell a lot of people, we already discussed what's in the water. A lot of people that was buying my toothpaste, they love the product, but what they would do is it's an old habit they have of rinsing their mouth with the fluoride chlorine and lead water that's in their bathroom. I tell them to get you a bottle of water, and that bottle of water should last you a couple of weeks. Take a sip, swish it around, and get it out of your mouth. Because when you brush your teeth with this toothpaste, it's pulling that toxic up. You don't want to swallow this. You really want to get rid of this because it's working in your gums. Now, when it went in your mouth, it went in organic, natural ingredients, but by it's working and pulling the toxins out of your gum, you just want to rinse your mouth and move on. But do not use sink water.
Yeah, that's the question I was going to ask, because it doesn't sound logical to use your toothpaste and then use a commercial mouthwash that has chemicals.
Absolutely.
So what are we using to rinse our mouth with?
Well, believe it or not, you can just add bottled water to the toothpaste, to Prodent Max that's already in your mouth, and just rinse it around. You really don't have to rinse your mouth. That's just an add-on for the companies to make. Now, I'm gonna say this. Back in the 1800s, Dr. Hampton, I'm not gonna name no companies, but I'm gonna say this. There was companies that came out with a mouthwash. At first, they was trying to sell this fluid as a mop floor cleaner, as to clean the floors. It didn't sell. They tried to sell it as sterilizing surgical tools. That didn't sell.
What are we talking about? Fluoride?
Yeah. I'm talking about mouthwash.
Mouthwash in general.
With fluoride and everything in it.
Wow. Okay.
Now, what happened, they add a little mint to it and put it on the billboards and told the women, this is back in the early 1900s, the reason why no one wants to marry you, and they created this new name called halitosis. And because your breath is so horrible, a man cannot stand to be in your presence. Fear, F-E-A-R, false evidence appearing real. It always sells. And what happened, it scared these women that they would never get married. They went out and started buying this, and they've been using it ever since to rinse their mouth.
Wow.
And you don't need that. All you need is something like even with this toothpaste, if you just add a little water, gargle with, you don't have to do that because it's doing the work for you.
Wow.
All of that was unnecessary.
I almost did believe you, and I actually just looked this up. Halitosis is an old Latin word meaning bad breath, but because of the scientific sounding name, people started to pay attention. It was framed as a medical condition that required treatment, and of course, the prescription was Listerine mouthwash.
Bingo!
Oh my God! So
bingo! See, I guess I didn't have to say it.
I had to look it up because it sounds. You sound like you're doing conspiracy theories today. I have a reputation in these streets, so this is amazing and very profound. And it's amazing how much information is right in front of us. They used to say that if you want to hide information,
put it in a book.
Put it in a book, right? So it's out there now. It's on the internet, and yet a lot of this stuff many people didn't know. So this is eye-opening, amazing. I do want to ask you before we tell everybody how to get access to your product, and I want to say this out loud. This is not a commercial, guys. I don't do commercials on my podcast. What I do is I provide education about things I think are of value, and then you walk away and decide if that value is going to be something you're going to incorporate into your life. So with that, I want to make sure you're able to continue to protect your nest. So when you think about my nest and rope acronym, what part of that are you going to focus on over the next 12 months?
Well, I believe I have misunderstood when we was talking about that, but I'm going to say this. This is what I came up with. As far as I guess we were talking about protection for my nest over 12 months. Yeah. I have already started building relationships with well-known people, some celebrities, who is going to help me to continue to grow my brand through various social medias and platforms. I am also building allies with some sororities and fraternities as well as with churches of various denominations. And I, believe it or not, I have went to a couple of pastors. I will never call no names. They don't want to be bothered with that, man. I kid you not. And to me, I'm not trying to make money off of you. I'm just trying to tell you, be aware of the stuff in your people's toothpaste that they're using. Can you at least tell your congregation that? Brother, it's like they don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of Dr. Sabi when he mentioned this to a few people I'd rather not name, and they wanted nothing to do with him.
Yeah, but that's the world we live in, and I will be honest. Most people are looking for, what do I get out of this relationship?
Sure.
But what should be the narrative is, particularly for people of faith who are kind of called to a higher duty. If anything is going to help my community and the people I serve, there should be interest. But I'll be honest, those things don't always pan out like you expect. So I think you surround yourself with good people who have a similar interest, and then things should fall into place. So I do agree with you. That's why I have a relationship in my rope. I do think relationships, if they don't serve you, you don't need those relationships. So if you run
absolutely
like the people you've described, that was a blessing, because now you knew up front. Because imagine if you hadn't heard that from them and they hadn't denied you. You start a relationship and then it was toxic, just like the fluoride. So
right.
It all worked out. So in terms of people getting access to your product, what's the best way to do that?
Well, they can go to prodentmax.com. That's spelled PRODENTMAX.com. When you can read about all the ingredients, look at the reviews, and you can see how great this toothpaste is. I mean, this is, matter of fact, the company that put this together for me, they call it the Ferrari of toothpaste. Believe it or not, Dr. Hampton. And he assured me he wasn't trying to swell my head up, I guess,
Right. Well,
so, but he did tell me, he said, believe me, my friend, you got the Ferrari of toothpaste. And because I added so many ingredients in this, and they can, as of January 1st, right after midnight, we finally got accepted on Amazon.
Nice. Good for you.
So, because I want to get this into over 120 countries within the next year or so.
Nice.
And it's about, it's two most important days in your life, man. To me, I can't speak for other people. The day I was born and the day when I find out what my purpose is. This really makes me happy. Just like when I came up with the patent on that toothbrush. I was told by 14 lawyers, Dr. Hampton, it'll never happen. But I had to let them know, you don't know my God and me very well, because I don't give up that easy. But I end up with that patent.
Nice.
I even had lawyers at the University of Chicago told me we'll never make it. But you have to stay focused. If I can do it, so can you. And one of the things, I got rid of that victim mentality. I am responsible for my life. And what I need to do is take responsibility for what I'm doing. And I just want to leave something behind, because, our race, man, we invented all kind of stuff, brother. And all we doing is standing on the shoulders of our ancestors.
I got you. Well, luckily we live in a time where people who have an idea can actually make it a reality. And only barriers usually in your head. So I really appreciate the fact that you didn't let that negative thinking get in the way of this idea. But more importantly, I appreciate you coming to the Protecting Your Nest podcast to, give us some, give us a little good, bad, and ugly about fluoride. Give us some hope that there's alternatives, and
Sure.
and I appreciate that. So thank you for doing that, and I'll wrap up with a few thoughts, my brother.
Okay, my brother, that's it.
I'm gonna say a few things, and that's it.
Okay, brother, I really enjoyed you, and thank you so much, Dr. Hampton. I really appreciate it, and thanks for getting this out.
No problem.
Okay.
Take care. I appreciate you.
All right, doctor.
All right. And for those who are enjoying this episode, it is absolutely enlightening that fluoride has such an impact on our lives. And so it's kind of like a good, bad, and ugly. I would say the good is that for people who don't get toxic exposures, it may actually provide some protection against cavities, right? But it sounds like it's dose dependent. And that kind of goes to the bad in a way, particularly for our kids. The bad is that, when you think about toothpaste and you think about fluorinated water and all of the other exposures that my guest mentioned, and they're in that developing stage, they can end up with fluoresis. So we don't want that to happen. And the ugly is that, well, if you get fluoresis, it's not very attractive. Your teeth don't look very attractive. And it can also negatively affect your thyroid gland. So I think as we, stand 30,000 feet in the air, it's important that until we have randomized controlled trials, we have to use our judgment about whether or not we're going to expose ourselves to fluoride. And if we do, we need to be responsible, with the exposure. A nice compromise may be to have a dental hygienist to paint your teeth with fluoride periodically. You don't swallow, and then you get that type of exposure, which is probably less than what happens if you're consuming it daily or brushing your teeth daily with fluoride. So I think everybody listening to this episode has to make their own decision. It's nice to know that if you decide to get away from fluorinated toothpaste, that you have an option. And that's why I wanted to bring this guest to this podcast to expose you to what that option was and also some of the reasons why that option may make sense. So I really thank you again for coming to an audio-only version of the podcast. So no YouTube video, but we will still share it on YouTube as well so that people who want to hear it that way will get to do it. So I thank you. I appreciate you. And as I always say, be safe, be well, and continue to protect your nest. You've been listening to Protecting Your Nest with Dr. Tony Hampton. For more, visit drtonyhampton.com.